The townspeople of Millbrook Creek gathered outside Cordelia May Whitmore's cabin like vultures circling wounded prey. Their laughter cut through the autumn air as Mayor Thompson held up a crumpled telegram announcing with mock ceremony that they had found her a husband. The cruel gift they presented stumbled off the stagecoach with trembling hands and hollow eyes. Cordelia pressed her palm against her swollen belly. 6 months pregnant and abandoned, she had become their entertainment. The man before her clutched a battered medical bag. His coat hung loose on his frame. His hands shook like autumn leaves. Before the storm, Mrs. Abigail Hartwell stepped forward, her voice dripping with false sweetness. She proclaimed this the perfect solution to Cordelia's predicament. The crowd erupted in fresh laughter. Cordelia's cheeks burned. She recognized the satisfaction in their faces. These people who had once brought her their torn dresses and ripped shirts now stood united in her humiliation. The stranger's name was Jasper Thorne Blackwood. His voice barely carried over the wind when he spoke it. The townspeople dispersed. Slowly, their entertainment concluded for now. Cordelia stood in her doorway. Jasper remained by the stagecoach. Neither moved toward the other. Evening shadows stretched across the dusty ground between them. Cordelia finally stepped aside, allowing him entry without words. He followed, his footsteps careful and measured. The cabin felt smaller with another person inside. Cordelia gestured toward a chair by the cold fireplace. Jasper remained standing. She had heard whispers about mail-order husbands. Desperate. Arrangements for desperate times. This felt different. This felt like punishment. Jasper's medical bag drew her attention. The leather was worn, but well maintained. His clothes were clean, despite their threadbare state. Whatever had broken him had not stolen his dignity. Cordelia prepared a simple meal. Her movements were efficient, practiced. She had learned to waste nothing since Richard Sterling disappeared. From her life, Jasper accepted the plate with quiet gratitude. His hands shook as he lifted the fork. Food scattered back onto the tin. His jaw tightened with frustration. The silence stretched between them like a taut rope. Cordelia ate slowly, studying this stranger thrust into her life. His eyes held depths she recognized. The same hollow ache that stared back at her from mirrors. Night fell with autumn's swift darkness. Cordelia pointed toward the small back room where she had prepared a pallet. Jasper shook his head. He would sleep in the barn. She did not argue. Some battles were not worth fighting. The next morning brought frost and whispered conversations from passing townspeople. Cordelia heard fragments through her thin walls. They spoke of Jasper like a broken toy, a man no woman would want. Jasper emerged from the barn as the sun crested the mountains. He had already fed her chickens and gathered eggs. His trembling hands had managed these simple tasks through sheer determination. Cordelia studied his face in the morning light. Lines mapped stories across his forehead. His eyes held the weight of things seen and not forgotten. Days passed in careful distance. They shared meals but few words. Jasper worked despite his limitations. He repaired loose boards with painstaking effort. Each nail-driven home required multiple strikes. Cordelia continued her sewing. Her skillful fingers transformed scraps into useful things. The work kept her hands busy and her mind from wandering toward uncertain futures. The townspeople's cruelty revealed itself in layers. Mrs. Hartwell made visits, ostensibly checking on Cordelia's condition. Her real purpose was gathering details. For gossip, she asked pointed questions about their sleeping arrangements and spoke loudly about the joke they had played. Cordelia's shame deepened with each visit. She had become a cautionary tale. A woman who had trusted the wrong man and now lived with the consequences. But something shifted the afternoon she collapsed while hanging laundry. The world tilted sideways. Her vision darkened at the edges. The ground rushed up to meet her. Jasper's voice cut through the haze. His hands, steady for the first time since his arrival, supported her weight. He guided her inside with surprising strength. He examined her with practiced efficiency. His questions were precise, medical. How long since she had eaten? When had she last felt the baby move? His trembling returned once the immediate crisis passed. Cordelia watched him work. This was not the broken man the town had mocked. This was someone who understood bodies and healing. Someone whose hands remembered skills his mind fought to access. She asked about his medical knowledge. Jasper's response came slowly, reluctantly. He had been an army medic. The war had taken pieces of him that would not grow back. Understanding passed between them without further words. They were both casualties of different battles, both discarded by a world that had no use for damaged goods. That evening, Mrs. Hartwell's voice carried from the street outside. She bragged to a neighbor about the perfect punishment they had devised. Two broken people thrust together as entertainment for decent folks. Cordelia saw Jasper's shoulders tighten. He had heard every word. She made a decision that would change everything. She asked him to stay, not as the husband they had forced upon her, but as an ally against their shared humiliation. Jasper met her eyes across the small cabin. Something passed between them, an understanding that they were stronger together than apart. The town had intended cruelty. They had created something else entirely. Winter was coming. Cordelia's belly grew larger each day. The baby would arrive before spring thawed the frozen ground. She would need help when that time came. Looking at Jasper's careful movements and quiet competence, she began to believe she had found it in the most unexpected place. Their alliance began with small gestures. Cordelia left coffee brewing before dawn. Jasper split kindling despite his trembling hands. Each act spoke what words could not carry. The town's mockery continued. Children pointed and whispered. Adults made cruel jokes within earshot. But something had shifted in the cabin on Elm Street. Jasper's medical knowledge revealed itself gradually. He noticed when Cordelia's ankles swelled, suggested she elevate her feet, prepared willow bark tea for her headaches without being asked. His hands betrayed him constantly. Cups slipped from his grasp, tools scattered across the floor. But his mind remained sharp, his knowledge intact. Cordelia watched him struggle with simple tasks. The frustration carved deeper lines around his eyes. She began anticipating his needs, steadying cups, retrieving dropped items without comment. November winds rattled the cabin windows. The baby moved more frequently now. Cordelia's breath grew short with simple movements. Dr. Edmund Hayes made his monthly visit. His examination was cursory. His breath carried the sharp scent of whiskey. He declared everything normal and left quickly. Jasper's jaw tightened after the doctor departed. He asked careful questions about Hayes's examination. His concerns surfaced in the spaces between words. That evening, Cordelia discovered Jasper's medical bag open on the kitchen table. Army commendations lay scattered beside surgical instruments. A field manual bore his name and rank. The papers told a story the town had never bothered to learn. Dr. Jasper Thorne Blackwood, decorated field surgeon, commended for valor under fire. She understood then. The trembling hands had once performed miracles, had saved lives while cannons thundered overhead. The war had stolen his steadiness but not his skill. Jasper found her reading his commendations, his face flushed with shame. He reached for the papers with shaking fingers. Cordelia's voice stopped him. She spoke his title with respect, Dr. Blackwood. The words hung in the air between them. His shoulders sagged, the pretense fell away. He told her about the last surgery, the steady hands that had failed when a soldier's life hung in the balance, the trembling that began that day and never stopped. Cordelia listened without judgment. She understood about failures that haunted quiet moments. about mistakes that rewrote entire futures. She shared her own story then, Richard Sterling's promises, his wife appearing at the church doors on their wedding day, the revelation that she had been the other woman all along. They sat before the dying fire, two people stripped of pretenses, two hearts bearing witness to each other's wounds. The baby's movements grew stronger through November. Cordelia's discomfort increased. Her back ached constantly. Sleep came in brief intervals. Jasper noticed everything. The way she pressed her hand to her spine, how she caught her breath climbing stairs. His medical instincts warred with his damaged confidence. December brought the first serious snowfall. With it came complications Cordelia could not hide. She woke one morning dizzy and nauseous. Her vision blurred at the edges. Her hands and face showed new swelling. Jasper's examination was thorough despite his trembling fingers. His questions were precise, clinical, his concern evident in the tightness around his eyes. The symptoms painted a dangerous picture, one he recognized from medical training, one that required careful monitoring. Dr. Hayes was nowhere to be found. His office remained locked. Neighbors whispered about his increased drinking, his unreliability in medical matters. Jasper faced an impossible choice. Step forward with his damaged hands or watch Cordelia's condition worsen without proper care. That afternoon brought the answer. Mrs. Patterson arrived at their door carrying her youngest son. The boy's arm hung at an unnatural angle. A fall from the barn loft. Hayes could not be located. The nearest doctor was 2 days' ride through mountain passes already thick with snow. Cordelia looked at Jasper. The boy's mother pleaded with desperate eyes. Jasper's hands shook violently as he examined the break, but his voice remained steady, his instructions clear. He reset the bone with surprising precision despite the trembling. The boy's cries subsided. The arm straightened. Mrs. Patterson wept with relief. Word spread quickly through the small community. The broken man who could heal. The joke husband who possessed real skill. People began arriving quietly, seeking help for ailments Hayes had dismissed or treated poorly. Jasper's reputation grew despite his obvious limitations. Cordelia watched him work. His hands might shake, but his knowledge remained sound, his touch gentle, his diagnoses accurate. She realized what the town had given her in cruelty. Not a broken man, but a wounded healer. Not a burden, but exactly what she needed. The baby would come soon. Winter storms were building in the mountains. Dr. Hayes remained missing more often than not. Jasper's hands trembled as he prepared for what was coming. But his resolve steadied, his purpose clarified. Cordelia felt her first contractions as December winds howled outside their windows. The baby was early, the roads were impassable. She looked at Jasper across their small cabin. His trembling hands held surgical instruments with familiar reverence. She had trusted Richard Sterling with her heart and been betrayed. Now she would trust this wounded man with her life and her child's life. The town had meant to break them both. Instead, they had found strength in their shared wounds, purpose in their mutual healing. Snow began falling in earnest as Cordelia's labor began. The wind carried the promise of a long, hard storm. But inside the cabin on Elm Street, too broken, people prepared to become something neither had dared hope for, something whole. The contractions began at dawn. Cordelia gripped the kitchen table as pain rolled through her body. Too early, too fierce. The baby was not waiting for spring's gentler arrival. Jasper moved with quiet efficiency. His hands shook as he gathered supplies, clean linens, hot water, the surgical instruments he had hoped never to use again. Outside, December wind howled through bare branches. Snow fell in thick curtains. The roads to the next county disappeared beneath white drifts. Dr. Hayes had been found 3 days earlier, face down in Miller's Creek, His heart had finally surrendered to the whiskey that had claimed his practice piece by piece. The town faced winter without a physician. Millbrook Creek had become an island in the storm. Cordelia's labor progressed quickly. Each contraction brought the baby closer to a world that suddenly felt more dangerous. Jasper's medical training warred with his damaged confidence. His hands trembled violently as he examined her, but his voice remained steady, his knowledge intact despite the shaking fingers that betrayed him. The baby was breech positioned, wrong for safe delivery, the kind of birth that killed mothers and children in frontier towns. Jasper had delivered breech babies during the war, in battlefield hospitals where screams mixed with cannon fire. His hands had been steady then. Rock solid under pressure. Now they shook with every heartbeat. Cordelia saw the fear in his eyes, the recognition of danger he could not voice. She reached for his trembling hand and held it firm. Her trust settled something deep in his chest, the place where confidence had once lived before the war stole it away. Hours crawled past. The storm intensified. Wind drove snow against the windows until the glass disappeared beneath white walls. Cordelia's strength began to fade. Her face grew pale, her breathing shallow. The baby's heartbeat weakened with each examination. Jasper faced the choice he had dreaded since arriving in Millbrook Creek: attempt the delivery with hands that might fail at the crucial moment, or watch both mother and child slip away while he stood paralyzed by his own limitations. The cabin grew dim as afternoon died. Cordelia's contractions came faster now, more desperate, her body preparing for a battle it might not win. Jasper's instruments lay arranged on clean linen, each tool familiar despite the months since he had last used them. Muscle memory remained even when confidence had fled. He positioned himself carefully. His hands shook as he reached for the first instrument, the trembling that had defined him since the war. Cordelia's eyes found his across the small space. Her gaze held no doubt, no fear of his limitations, only absolute trust in the man she had learned to see beneath the wounds. Something shifted in Jasper's chest. The trembling slowed, not stopped, but steadied, purpose overriding panic. He began the careful work of turning the baby, his movements precise despite the shaking. Years of training guiding damaged hands through delicate maneuvers. The wind outside reached a fever pitch. The cabin groaned under the storm's assault. But inside, in the circle of lamplight, two people fought for 3 lives. Cordelia pushed when Jasper instructed, rested when he commanded, her trust absolute despite the pain that threatened to tear her apart. The baby's position shifted slowly. Each adjustment bought precious inches, each movement a small victory against the complications that had killed so many mothers. Jasper's hands found their rhythm. The trembling became part of the work rather than an obstacle to it, his body remembering what his mind had tried to forget. Hours blended together, time measured in heartbeats and contractions, in the careful dance between doctor and patient that had once been second nature. The baby's head appeared first now, the position corrected through painstaking effort, but the hardest work still lay ahead. Cordelia's strength ebbed with each push. Her body had given everything it had. The reserves that might carry her through were running dry. Jasper felt the familiar weight of responsibility, the same pressure he had carried in army hospitals when wounded soldiers trusted him with their last breaths. His hands steadied further. Not completely, the trembling remained, but controlled now, channeled into the precision that had once made him the best field surgeon in his regiment. The baby emerged slowly, one shoulder, then the other, the small body slippery and still in Jasper's trembling hands. No cry, no movement. The child hung suspended between life and death in the quiet cabin. Jasper cleared the tiny airways with practiced movements, his fingers working despite their shaking. Techniques learned on battlefields where death came too easily. The first cry split the silence, thin and wavering but unmistakably alive. The baby's lungs filling with December air. Cordelia's tears came then, relief and exhaustion and joy mixing in the lamplight. Her daughter breathed, her heart beat strong and steady. Jasper cleaned the baby with gentle efficiency. His hands still shook, but his movements were sure, confident in a way they had not been since the war ended. He placed the child in Cordelia's arms, mother and daughter meeting for the first time. Two hearts that had beaten as one, now separate, but forever connected. The storm continued outside, wind and snow battering the small cabin. But inside, warmth had been born from the cold. Life had emerged from the place where death had seemed certain. Jasper packed away his instruments with careful reverence. His hands trembled as they always would. But tonight they had remembered their purpose. Cordelia watched him work. This man the town had given her as a cruel joke. This wounded healer who had saved her life and her daughter's life, with hands that shook but did not fail. The baby slept peacefully in her arms. A perfect child born into an imperfect world. Living proof that broken things could still create miracles. Outside, Millbrook Creek slept beneath the storm, unaware that their joke had become their salvation. That the man they had mocked had just accomplished what their real doctor never could have managed. The wind began to quiet as midnight approached. The blizzard's fury spent against the mountains. In the morning, the town would wake to a world transformed by snow and by the quiet miracle that had occurred on Elm Street. Dawn broke clear and cold over Millbrook Creek. The storm had passed, leaving the world crystalline and transformed. Inside the cabin on Elm Street, baby Hope slept in her mother's arms. Jasper sat by the window, watching morning light paint the snow. His hands rested steady on his knees. The trembling had not disappeared, but something fundamental had shifted during the long night. Cordelia studied his profile against the frosted glass. This man who had delivered her daughter with shaking hands and unwavering skill. The cruel joke had become her salvation. Word of the birth spread through the snowed-in town. Mrs. Patterson was the first to arrive, carrying soup and gratitude. Her son's arm had healed perfectly under Jasper's care. Others followed throughout the day. People who had whispered cruel jokes now spoke in hushed reverence. They had witnessed something they could not explain or dismiss. Mayor Thompson arrived as the sun reached its peak. His bluster died when he saw the healthy baby. The successful birth that should have been impossible without proper medical care. The town's mockery transformed into something else: recognition, respect, the dawning understanding that their joke had saved them all. Mrs. Hartwell came last. Her proud shoulders carried the weight of shame now. She stood in the doorway, words failing her for the first time in memory. Cordelia waited. The silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken apologies and recognition of cruelty delivered. Mrs. Hartwell's voice broke when she finally spoke. She asked Jasper to become their doctor, to fill the void Hayes had left behind. Jasper's hands trembled as he considered the offer, the responsibility, the trust, the chance to heal others despite his own wounds. He accepted, with quiet dignity, not because his hands had stopped shaking, but because he had learned to work with them anyway. Spring arrived early that year. The snow melted in rushing streams down the mountainsides. The ground thawed and softened beneath their feet. Jasper established his practice in Heise's old office. Patients came daily. Their ailments varied, but their trust remained constant. Word spread to neighboring towns about the doctor whose hands shook but whose skill never wavered. Cordelia watched him leave each morning with his medical bag. The same battered leather case that had marked him as broken now identified him as their healer. Their marriage had begun as a cruel joke. Slowly, quietly, it became something neither had dared hope for. Love born from shared wounds and mutual healing. Baby Hope thrived through the spring months. Her laughter filled the cabin with joy that had been absent too long. She reached first for Jasper's trembling hands, showing no fear of what others had seen as weakness. The town celebrated their first anniversary with genuine warmth. The joke marriage had become a love story that saved them all. Cordelia's sewing circle welcomed her back. The women who had once whispered cruel gossip now sought her friendship. Redemption came in small gestures and daily kindnesses. Jasper's hands still shook, they always would. But when he held Hope against his chest, they steadied. When he touched Cordelia's face in the lamplight, the trembling slowed to stillness. Summer brought prosperity to Millbrook Creek. Jasper's reputation drew new families to the growing town. His presence had become a blessing they could not imagine living without. Cordelia opened a dress shop on Main Street. Her skilled fingers created beautiful things from simple cloth. The business thrived as word spread about her talent. They had both found purpose in the place where they had been discarded, meaning in the community that had meant to destroy them. The cabin on Elm Street filled with laughter now, Hope's first steps, Jasper's quiet pride in his growing practice, Cordelia's contentment in life she had never planned, but could not imagine changing. Richard Sterling appeared one autumn afternoon, older now, worn by choices that had led nowhere good. He spoke of regret and second chances. Cordelia listened without anger. The pain he had caused had led her to Jasper, to hope, to a life richer than any he could have provided. She wished him well and watched him leave. Some chapters closed cleanly. Others opened doors to unexpected blessings. That evening, she found Jasper in the garden. His hands worked the soil despite their trembling, preparing the ground for next year's growth. Hope played at his feet, secure in the love of two people who had found each other in the wreckage of their separate sorrows. The town had given them to each other as a cruel joke. God had used their meanness for his mercy. Broken people healing broken people until wholeness emerged from the ruins. Jasper's hands would always shake. Cordelia's heart would always carry scars from Richard's betrayal. But together, they had built something beautiful from the pieces. Winter returned to Millbrook Creek with its familiar bite. But the cabin on Elm Street glowed warm against the cold. Three hearts beating together in the rhythm of unexpected love. The joke had become their greatest blessing. The broken man had healed them all. Love had grown in the space where cruelty was meant to flourish. Jasper held his daughter while Cordelia prepared their evening meal. His trembling hands cradled new life with infinite gentleness. The shaking that had marked him as damaged now seemed part of his particular grace. Some gifts came wrapped in suffering. Some blessings wore the disguise of curses. In Millbrook Creek, they had learned to look deeper than surface appearances. The town that had played the cruelest joke had received the greatest gift. Two wounded souls had found healing in each other's company. A child had been born from their unexpected love. Hope slept peacefully in her father's shaking arms, living proof that broken things could still create miracles. That love could grow in the most unlikely soil. Outside, snow began to fall again. But inside the cabin on Elm Street, warmth had taken root, the kind that would last through all the winters yet to come. And that is all to the story for now. Please let me know where you are tuning in from. Perhaps we will create a story there. Consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel. And if you enjoy our content, click this video on your screen. I promise you, it's worth watching. See you tomorrow.